Can you jump in here?
Yes, of course.
Yes, and your friend also.
Thank you so much.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we are gonna dance with Yari Stilo
Exactly.
again. So we have already danced together on the podcast, which was beautiful. And this is one of the things that I've mentioned quite a few times is like there is a real desire to return and maybe see another practice or another side of someone's practice or to see where people are now. So this is like really an opportunity to go back into something or to go into something new that you're now busy with. So I'm super happy that you can do this and glad. Do you want to say something about yourself? Maybe where you are now, what's going on in your life, and if people don't know you.
Yeah. Where I turned 40 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And we are right now actually at my house in Eckerö. It's a collective house, and it's a huge house in the countryside with a garden and the horses around and so on.
Yes, it's very beautiful.
Yeah. you just came very early in the morning because I don't know.
Yeah, you can say what we're gonna do.
Yeah, because we will hitchhike to the city. And why do we do this? I think I thought I started while studying at Eskoho. I started to hitchhike toward the city, and dance came up in different ways. One of the ways is that because I would go to Eskoho, I would always engage to the question, where do you go and what do you do? And then dance would come up in conversation all the time with the people that pick me up. But another also way is that in this hitchhiking, in the moment of asking for the dance, asking for a ride, a lot of knowledge from dance would just come up. Also because, for example, I'm a tango dancer, and why we in tango we choose each other by gazing. So a similar knowledge of asking for a dance somehow would come up, but also knowledge of how I do relating on stage, on a stage in relation to an audience that might be very far or very near, and positioning and maybe also somehow a sort of fast charming. I don't know. So all that somehow made me think about that. And when you also asked me if one day I wanted to do something more like as the previous time I was with Serial Joiner, then I thought, okay, this could be a good practice to do together, and
And and so if someone wanted to try at home, could it be that, I mean, they can also hitchhike if they want, but maybe we don't recommend that people do it if they haven't done it before, maybe. But if people want to maybe meet someone who's traveling somewhere, meet a stranger, they could also ask, to speak to a stranger, to ask to speak about dance or where they're going, to somehow connect to the journey and the traveling, maybe, or.
I think it's it's definitely a good interesting point. Yes, if the people want to, I mean, that question, where do you go? It could always lead to dance, as we dance a lot.
Yeah.
So this is easy in that sense. And I'm also thinking there is something about being moved. No, so also being a train, on a bus. And how we relate with dance and moving and be moved. I think there is also an entry point there, maybe.
Because we are going to the studio. This is our sort of like entry into into the conversation.
Yes, but also the what we do in the studio is moving and be moved.
Yes,
that I
yes,
feel
yes,
it's also something that
Yeah.
the walking and talking and so on in that sense somehow.
Oh, great. I think it seems really clear. We will go and try to hitch a lift, and then we will hopefully start a conversation. And, we will be moved and move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Lovely.
So let's pause. We will go away and try some of these practices, and then we will come back and discuss after.
Lovely.
Yeah?
Yes.
Very good. Can you jump in here? Yes, of course. Yes, and your friend also.
Thank you so much. Hey, so we are back. Thank you, Yari. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was good. It was beautiful to be with someone, sort of maybe leading the situation, but at the same time giving a different attention to the practice.
Yeah. So there's a lot of aspects to it, right? So there was the part where we're waiting, we're trying to hitch a ride, and you were talking about many different sort of techniques that you've tried and used, and I think what's interesting is like we were trying them, and I recognized like, how do you know when it works or not? I mean, it works or it doesn't work, but like what part of the, like, was it the putting the arm out further, or was it the singing, or was it the smile, or was it the sense of like urgency, like I need to go somewhere, like trying to communicate a sort of a need, like that was really, it was really interesting to see how you're practicing that maybe and stuff. Like, how is it? Because it's so detailed for you, and it was very clear. Like it felt like a dance practice, which was really nice. Standing beside the road, also with all this anxiety and things, because you do connect it to performance, right?
Yeah. I think it's difficult to. Of course, sometimes I suppose that the connection between cause and effect.
Yeah.
So, I think that doing this will help or produce something like. We spoke about singing as a little like almost to yourself, as a way to feel natural, to look natural in your face, or to not look like to make sure somehow sort of something that in immersive performance is quite a sort of feeling of honesty or feeling of natural, not formal, not like also because there is a lot of people are scared to take us up. I mean, in that sense. And then the anxiety, it's something I don't really fully have usually, because now it's something that in the being choose, it's an anxiety. We want to please people. We want to also reach our goals. So in that sense, it's strong. And maybe during performances on stage, certain days I could have this a feeling of like, I don't feel as usual, or I don't feel something is different, and I don't know what it is, and I get anxious or something. But there is in such a situation, there is so much about trusting also how it is what it is. It is and then creating this cause effect that sometimes are actually clear. I remember, for example, there was this moment where I told you, I think we should really give like every car a chance to pick us up.
Yeah.
And I mean, actually, after 1 minute, someone stopped. Yeah. And of course, this could be a cause, but also not. I mean, I agree in that sense,
Yeah. No, but for me, it felt different from my side as well. Like before, I was It was like I was, like when you're doing a dance and you do the steps and then the teacher says, no, you have to also express it, or something like this.
I love that.
I really felt like this. I was like, no, I'm putting my hand out, I'm close.
Yeah.
Like I was literally doing the shapes you had told me to do. And then when you said this thing to really, every single car is the one that which is going to take you. Try to imagine this. This provided me a sort of sense of like commitment and performativity, which I felt was different. And what's interesting is I noticed the difference in performativity like drastically once in the car. I feel like there's 3 phases to the performativity. There is the waiting and having the arm out and looking, and then there's the getting in the car, like and saying hello, and then there's like once in the car, the conversation that ensues and the trying to be thankful and kind and grateful.
Yeah.
Like very, very different performativities. And the first one felt like a lot like how a performance can feel sometimes that you're detached from the audience and very distant from them. But then adding this quality you spoke of like every single one, like committing to each car, this allowed me to somehow be more engaged in the performance. Like I stepped into the situation that I was trying to create.
Right.
The being in dialogue with someone.
Yeah.
It's super beautiful.
Yeah. It's this also almost like breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
almost if there is a first part of the performance where it's a lot about the fourth wall and how to get and to reach that person that really chosen and suddenly put us in their car, in their world, and then suddenly the attention of front.
Yeah.
It's actually opposite. Before it's like against each other, and then it's like together towards something.
Yeah, and inside. And I noticed the driver, he was turning to like look at us and was really wanting to communicate, and then very quickly he was talking about dance and about what we are doing and asking questions. And I thought, I was in the moment like, I really need to be better at this, like saying what I do. And then very quickly it turned out he had been dancing as a child.
Yes.
And this was amazing, you know, like, and he was talking about pas de bourrée.
Right.
And like was struggling for the word and stuff, like to remember what it was, and gave this sort of gesture. So he was also moving and dancing, and like this whole world that sort of was like conjured, and we were in it together, and the car was so warm in comparison to
outside.
It was amazing.
Yeah, I really found that, I mean, with you, to be there with you, I started, I don't know why, to be more attentive to gestures.
Yeah.
So before the people would take us, the little gesture you see from them, even like, no, I can't today.
Yeah.
It was a gesture actually to reinforce that we are there and we have a connection, although they don't pick us up.
Yeah.
And this idea of they are free to not take us, but they recognize us. It's already something that warmed up my like, okay, but they recognize it, they acknowledge us, and it's like they can't, they're afraid, but still, they're like, we're there, and it's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to do this. I might not agree, but I don't pick you up, but it's okay. And like, it's very interesting.
Definitely. I mean, you said at some point maybe the gestures are no's, but I was like, none of them felt like no's. I felt like the no's were the ones who committed to their driving.
Yeah.
They tried to perform almost like, no, I have a place to go. I'm sorry, I can't stop.
Or like, I don't see you because most
I don't
of that.
see you. I don't want to see you.
Yeah,
almost,
right.
But I think
they were a gesture of sorry then. Or a gesture of sorry,
maybe.
I can't, or
at least maybe it's my
I'm going there out. So there is a lot of
optimism.
gesture like, oh, it's just 100 meters and then I turn right, so I cannot pick you up. This,
Yeah.
Or which
Or
kind
I'm
of
in a
gesture
rush.
do you think? Yeah, right.
Like just looking forward and
No, I mean the gesture, the one
that isn't no.
yeah,
It was sort of like hand waves, right? And it's
Right.
very unclear to sort of know what it meant, but I didn't feel like it was no, how dare you. I felt it was more like, because I think people would do something more like a finger, you know?
right.
Like fuck you, I'm not participating in your belief in community or whatever we are ideologically sort of standing for by doing this. But they're sort of waving like, not today, or I see you exactly, but not no. This is what I was sort of saying. Like, and sometimes it was when they had more than one person in the car, so it was really like, okay, there's too many people. Maybe they can't take any more.
Yeah. Well, the one that totally refuses and not actually not see, that they look like they didn't see us. Sometimes if you noticed, they would also accelerate.
Yes.
As a way to say no. I'm going against, even I'm going against.
I've got places to be.
Right, yeah. On the other side, the person that took us, well, it's a person that took me a couple of times before. And he had this gesture. So he was driving, and then he gestured me, pointing to me. He's like, I know you. I pick you up before. Yeah. And then he stopped, and then he was happy to have two people almost also.
Yeah, he says, oh, great, you're bringing your friend.
Yes.
It's... there is something about being recognized and finding familiarity or familiarness. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts at the moment to do with our lack of community and communal bonds. Like we rarely can turn to our neighbor and talk to them, and we substitute in this podcast. They're talking about like we substitute these familiar bonds, these communal bonds, with apparatuses like the state. So if your neighbor is playing too loud music, rather than speak to them, some people turn to the state to intervene, or the authority of the building maybe, or something. We are in a social situation with these structures and hierarchies, which has incapacitated us to be free to communicate with our neighbor and our communities around us, in the extent that that it's not scary. And I think that's the really interesting thing with the practice, is that it's challenging exactly that fear of meeting with a stranger. And maybe that's why at the beginning I said, maybe it's possible that if people don't want to hitchhike, because we don't know the legality around what does it mean to hitchhike, then people can try and meet a stranger and start a conversation about where they're going and where they're traveling to, and about dance perhaps. But
it's so interesting how from both sides, from the side of the driver and the side of the hitchhiker, both are scared.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this is so in there is this idea that hitchhiking is dangerous from both sides. And of course this is also coming from 70s movies, horror movies, and I don't know much. I really never really look, how is really dangerous in terms of data, and I do suppose no, but I don't know. But it's interesting, this double role of be careful, because I get a lot of people that they are so brave. They take me and I clearly see they're scared. So I'm also interesting about how people basically they empathize with me. A lot of worker or immigrants, a lot of people that I don't know if maybe they want company. I don't think so, I must say. It's usually more like a step out from their comfort,
Mhm.
more than looking for help or something, or looking for.
No, it's like, I mean, is it fair to say, like, to put those films, those narratives within the realm of state propaganda? Because in some regards, in relationship to this, what I said earlier, there is a sense of it benefits the state that we don't trust each other, that we do stay isolated, because it means we depend upon the police and the state to organize things for us, and we depend upon power remaining the way it is, and for the rich to sort of stay the material owners of their property and everything. And like we don't know the statistics, but from a felt sense, it shouldn't be scary, you know, to ask for help, to lend a hand. These are things I think we know to be morally the right thing to do and participate in. However, there is an ideology sort of surrounding it, that there are psychopaths and murderers lurking behind every wheel or behind every thumb that is hitchhiking or that is driving, and that people will want to take advantage of the situation. I mean, in doing it, for me, there's no imagination of why someone would want to abuse the kindness of another in that way or take advantage of that. And of course, it's ridiculous of me to try and empathize with what is often deemed as a psychopathic behavior or sociopathic behavior. But at the same time, maybe I'm naive and maybe I haven't had an unfortunate life, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
However, I think it's worth noticing, like, it doesn't have to be hitchhiking. This is like an extreme activity, really, in relationship. It can be just stopping to check if someone's okay, if they've slipped, or saying hello to someone on the street. Like those activities of meeting with our neighbors and the communal thing, and like trusting that not everyone is a bad person, right? There's something in that.
Yes, that's it. Wow, it's really strong what you're saying. It's also make me think that such idea also foster individuality, and and how you actually mentioned while we were hitchhiking, it's crazy how many cars are with one person, and how in such a moment of environmental crisis, this is like it's the norm. And
and like if we think about like what can we do politically in terms of the climate crisis and so on, like one of the things is to break these taboos of connecting with one another and being able to conquer the sort of the grief and the mourning together, like as communities, as people, rather than assuming or expecting an authority to take charge of it, and recognize like we're implicated in these things, not in the way of a sort of terrible negative thing, like you are the one responsible for climate change, but more we can do something, you know, like
right.
We can befriend people, we can try and open up, but it is so scary, and to create that vulnerability and that precarity. Like how has it felt doing it on a longer scale, because we only managed to do it a couple of times a day, but I know I will start to look for strangers. I might not hitchhike all the time, but having done it, I think that will hopefully lead me to perhaps try speaking to strangers, asking questions, and recognizing when I'm afraid of those things. But how has it changed your relationship to those anxieties? Has it increased the anxiety? Do you get nervous when doing something like hitchhiking?
No, I think the anxiety. I'm not anxious. Actually, I always try to be in a sort of urgency situation. So I never really hitchhike. Like I go hitchhike, I'm like, oh, there's a bus in 5 minutes. I don't stress already. So before I'm not anxious to take the bus.
Yeah.
So it might be arrive late, 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I don't stress, and very often I might arrive at the place where I have to be before, because the car is faster, because connection are then easier somehow. So I might hitchhike for 10 minutes and then still get, so be late with the bus and still get earlier than what the maps, the itinerary, public transportation itinerary would tell me.
It's like, sorry.
No, go for it.
It's like the narrative. You're shifting the narrative that we're expected to believe in, and by starting to understand that other narratives are possible, then it becomes obvious. Like I don't think I'm explaining myself very well. Like this sense of like, maybe before, if you had been hitchhiking with the assumption, I'm trying to take something from someone, I'm trying to get someone's to give me something for free.
Right.
If that had been your intention, then maybe it wouldn't work, or you would feel anxious.
Yes. Yeah.
But because the narrative is, I'm late, I'm urgent, please help me, and that you see it has a value sense for you, like it makes sense in sort of like, it's okay to do this, surely, like there's only one person in a car, like you're going that way, like please, I need to get somewhere.
Right.
And if you connect to that narrative, then it allows for the thing to happen, like to get a lift and to be less anxious.
Yes, that when the attention is different in that sense, produce different things. Obviously. Yeah. It's interesting, the shifting of the narratives of why I check. In a way, it's obvious, and it's also very connected to knowledge of dance. It's like I want to get more knowledge. I want to see how people, how dance play a role in people's life, but at the same time there's something about intimacy. It really reminds me this like participatory performances, this like connection that sometimes you have with an audience, that they know they are an audience, you know you are the performer, you build something that it's constructed, it's not real intimacy, and yet there is this another layer of that. So this and this I think today appeared extremely a lot, because it was a person that already took me, and it's not very often, because I have basically what I could call like people that, you know, how it's called, someone that we know each other a bit more. It's only maybe 2 or 3 people,
right?
And I hitchhike 3 times per week. And when I say 2 or 3 people, I mean that these 2 or 3 people, they took me in their car for maybe 3 times. I mean, or 4 maximum. And you know, and I do that since a couple of years. Actually, I did even when I was living in Archipelago in Vando, on the other side of the city. So it's not really, you know, a huge deal. And yet, this person today with you, I think he was turning more than usual, because we were 2. One in front, you near him, where usually I am, and me in the back. So today he was trying to speak with two people at the same time also. Plus, every day he does this the same around the same itinerary. So he also knows very well the street. He knows he's a worker on delivering things and so on. But we always speak about dance, and yet today, for the first time, he told you actually that he was doing show dance when he was young, and
named several schools
exactly that we don't know.
Yeah.
Several names also of dancers. So it's also very interesting how we got knowledge basically from him about we got experiences that we totally not access at all, me and you, by being at Escoho or whatever, by being in the more experimental scene of dance and so on.
But tell me something, because something that's been interesting me around dance recently is, like, I've been really curious in these practices of dance which aren't performative, they're experiential. So this I would say is a very experiential practice of, like, you hitchhike to get somewhere, and then it turns into an exploration of your body, others' bodies moving from one place to the other. Like, there's an experiential quality of dance in there, and this is how I understand it. But recently I've been really trying to understand the role of performance, and not necessarily for the stage or part of the apparatus of art making, but the quality of sharing maybe, or presenting, or communicating, even a dance for oneself. Like when one dances alone, there's almost like a desire for it to be performed into the room, into the space, for oneself to understand. And I wondered how this practice feels for you in terms of, like, presenting for others, because you haven't been presenting it for others so far, aside from, it's clear you wanted to share it on the podcast. So this is one iteration, and you had spoken about trying to find some ways of documenting the conversations and stuff. Could you speak a little bit more to that quality of performance in this practice? And like, how did it feel before you invited me in, for example?
But I think I learned dance in a group. I learned dance in a class, and the sharing, and theater, like almost like a city theater, almost like a community. I've danced a lot in theaters, and they had like orchestra, they had props makers, actors, and choir, and all that would mix very often also in performances. So I have also the need to share somehow, but the question is, I think there is a lack of sharing spaces that are beyond stage and theater, and I mean there is a lack because there is a lot of discussion about those things. I mean, it's not we really work, and we all know, yes, we don't need to be on stage to dance, to perform, and so on, what you just said. But then your podcast is one of them. But then there is no many. Okay, if I don't want to do this, or to ask for a grant, or what do I do, like, in practice? And then basically this is the answer. I think there is an answer from that.
I mean, for me it feels like we're pushed into places where either we have to compromise on the practice to make it fit the sharing forms, the ways of sharing that function, or we are pushed to isolation and individuation, that we don't get to collectivize these stories,
Exactly,
these ways of being.
exactly.
I think your connection to the dance class is very relevant, because in the dance class, especially my experience of especially all the years of ballet I did, it's a very silent class. Like, it's not like we're talking all the time, and it's a super collective environment in the sense of hanging out and stuff, but it's extremely collective in that every morning for how many years you're in the same room in between maybe the same two people doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And there's something very very rewarding and powerful about that collectivization of these qualities that you experience physically, to collectivize them in a situation, even if it's without talking. And I don't know what I want to say, but I think I want to acknowledge maybe that it's also a very complicated narrative between the individual, the collective, the subjective, and the objective. I don't have a full grasp, and my understanding is that they're not so binary, and they don't these terms maybe don't even really function. Because there is a need that we have individual practices, and at the same time there's a need that they are collectivized. However, the way we are pushed into working alone, making solos, competing and for funding and space in the dance world isn't the type of individual practice that sort of individual insight that is also relevant in dance, and trying to articulate them all and not fall into it has to be collective or it has to be individualist or we can't have individualism. It's also difficult to sort of draw a line. It's more complex than that.
Yeah, totally. And I'm excited about practices like hitchhiking, that it's a practice of nobody. And everybody.
Exactly.
And if I start to work now on that, and I work on that and practice it, and of course it's blend a bit the private and the public. But more I will create knowledge and share it, and more it will become Yari's practice also. And it's very interesting, right? So this could be a collective practice if I just hitchhike and then people hitchhike, and I don't know, things will follow, whatever. But if I start to just write about, if I start to have a podcast, whatever will become my practice, my things, and so on. So this is very interesting. How that, this is a bit like the work with Cyril Joyner, the ballet pantomime. So ballet pantomime it's a practice that is there, and it's not us. And yet, by taking and working on it, slowly it's becoming, our practice.
And what's clear is we recognize in dance and art practices that there's a need to spend time with things. There's a need to really investigate, especially maybe when we have a crisis of the communal in society, to experience what it means to hitchhike as a practice of breaking with that individuation, and yet we need time to practice on these practices and go further, but at the same time we are looking for how not to have them become ownership. How do they not become a brand?
Exactly.
Right. This is Yari's, this is Peter's, and them alone. How can it still remain in the collective somehow?
And at the same time, it's a bit because we don't sell objects. It's also our currency, somehow.
Yeah, it's already inbuilt.
Yes,
yeah, exactly.
And this is beautiful. This is when before you were saying about it's not as individuality, subjective. This is what it is. It's those questions around what we do that, we have to be in conversation with.
Yeah,
in that sense.
and yet dance, to try and find legitimacy in society, has tried to accommodate those logics of like this is only owned by such and such and so on.
Yes.
And what we failed to do is recognize that perhaps dance in its fullness can't exist in this society, or we need to change society in order to be able to dance.
Yeah.
Which is a very good. I don't know if it's a real quote, but Emma Goldman was quoted as if I cannot dance, it's not my revolution, or something along these lines.
Yeah, I understand.
Hey, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before?
No, it sounds like we explore also a lot of stuff that usually I don't. So to bring back my repertoire, it doesn't really sound like really exciting. So it's very beautiful. Thank you for also giving me a possibility to go on with such a practice.
But also maybe if people at home want to have tried certain things or doing certain things to do with strangers or travel and or maybe even hitchhiking itself, maybe they can reach out to you somehow. And
yeah, why not? Totally.
And have another conversation, because this is just my experience that has lent itself.
Yeah, it sounds good. That definitely, and I can share some tools, or also we can also get together some data. Why not? On how dangerous is actually to hitchhike.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're not so scientific, but I will then leave your Instagram, Facebook, something like this in the description.
Yeah, leave my Facebook. Yeah. This is perfect. Yeah,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yari. This is a pleasure, and I hope there is a third season or a third return. More practices to be had. Maybe you can come and do one of mine next.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
And also, thank you so much, because your podcast, it's so beautiful. It's so, I mean, I feel guilty that I basically never try the practices you host, and I'm sorry about that. But it's like, oh my God.
You don't need to be sorry. I think I know a few people are trying them.
Okay, good.
I think it's different temporalities and what you need, and I think just to give space to it. And I think the fact that we've done it is already something.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that the podcast gives us the motivation to come together and meet.
Yes.
To try something and to do it, actually do it, rather than just talk about it.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Yari.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Very good. Can you jump in here? Yes, of course. Yes, and your friend also.
Thank you so much.